Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. We're taking a structured look at a topic that honestly causes a lot of us way too much unnecessary anxiety. Demystifying social skills. Look, if you've ever felt like you just don't have the gift of gab, or you're watching everyone else effortlessly navigate conversations while you're literally struggling to find the right words, you're absolutely in the right place. We're going to break down exactly why that happens, and much more importantly, how to fix it, pulling some highly actionable insights from Improvement Pill. So let's tackle this massive question head on. Were you born socially awkward? We really need to talk about this, because it's this incredibly pervasive, damaging myth that social skills are just some innate talent. It's so easy to look at those highly charismatic people, the ones who just light up a room, and assume their brains are simply wired completely differently from yours right from birth. You start to buy into the idea that being socially awkward is just a permanent part of your DNA.
Well, I'm here to tell you that the answer is a definitive, resounding no. You just lack practice. That's literally the whole secret. I want to assure you right now that your struggles in social situations, they are not a permanent handicap. You aren't broken, and you absolutely aren't missing some magical charisma gene. As we unpack the source material today, you'll see that your current comfort level with conversations is simply a reflection of not getting the necessary reps in.
Which brings us to Section 1, the social skills myth. To really get why you are, in fact, fully equipped to be highly social, we have to look at how the human brain is fundamentally built to interact. We are a deeply social species. Think about this brilliant analogy from the source material. If you take a baby and put them in a room full of people, they're going to learn to speak purely through observation. You don't walk up to an infant with flashcards and formally teach them CAT spells cat, right? You don't need formal instruction. If you just go about your daily activities and talk naturally, the baby's brain is so incredibly powerful that it absorbs and learns the entire language completely on its own, just through pure observation. And that brings us to this crucial definition. Social interaction is really just a language comprised of distinct patterns and rules that the human brain naturally identifies. I mean, your brain is the ultimate pattern recognition machine. So the absolute key takeaway here is this. If you're feeling awkward, it's not a hardware issue with your brain. Actually, scratch that. It's not an issue at all. You just haven't given your brain enough real-world time to observe these interactions, spot the patterns, and become fluent in the rules. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. The screen time problem. So, if our brains are naturally so amazing at recognizing these social patterns, why are so many of us struggling so much today? To answer that, we've got to look at the real villain behind modern social anxiety. Consider this stark generational contrast. Past generations, they often didn't get their first smartphones until they were, around 20 years old. That meant 2 solid decades of forced face-to-face interaction. But for modern generations, many kids are getting their first smartphone before they even turn 10. A massive, overwhelming majority of modern interaction now happens hidden behind screens. We are literally stripping away our brain's natural practice time. It is not your fault you lack practice. Society has completely shifted the way we communicate. Moving right along to Section 3, texting versus real life. This heavy reliance on what our source so perfectly calls the magic little rectangle directly and negatively impairs our ability to communicate face-to-face. Let's really look at why screen communication is shortchanging us. Think about texting for a second. It is incredibly easy. It takes almost zero skill to accept a friend request, type a few quick words, and just throw in a smiley face emoji. It's a highly simplified system. But real-life talking? When you text, there are literally hundreds of missing components that normally make up human communication. Texting is a completely different, drastically easier language than actually standing in front of another human being. Think about all the unseen rules of real life. We're talking body language, facial expressions, tonality, the speed of someone's talking, their physical proximity to you, eye contact. Your brain needs to actively observe and process all of these complex patterns simultaneously to fully grasp what's happening in a conversation. When we only communicate via text, our brains are completely starved of this absolutely crucial social data. So, what's the inevitable result here? You become fluent in texting, but you are barely passing real-life talking. The source makes a fantastic comparison here. It's kind of like barely passing high school Chinese. And honestly, I want you to feel totally validated by this. It is perfectly normal to feel incredibly nervous when you haven't properly learned the language of real life. You wouldn't expect to magically be fluent in high school Chinese without practicing it, right? So why in the world would you expect to be a master conversationalist without actively practicing the language of real life?
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the solution. Section 4, the 100 Interaction Challenge.
So we are pivoting from understanding the problem to a highly actionable, real-world solution. This is exactly how we fix that practice deficit. 100. Yeah, I know, it sounds like a massive, totally intimidating number right out of the gate. But getting to 100 interactions over the course of a single month is the secret to getting better. You need volume to give your brain the sheer amount of data it craves.
And here is how you break this down into extremely low-stakes steps. Step 1, pretend your phone is dead, so you automatically have a valid excuse. Step 2, go up to a stranger and simply ask them for directions. The stakes are so incredibly low here. Honestly, the source notes that even running up, saying hi, and literally running away technically counts. But step 3 is where the real growth happens. Let the conversation transition naturally. Very often, a simple surface-level question about how to get to the coffee shop will organically evolve into a slightly deeper practice conversation.
Because the core purpose of this challenge is so simple. Give your brain the opportunity to observe. You really need to remember that the goal isn't to be perfectly charming, hilarious, or wildly charismatic right away. The goal is simply to feed your brain the raw, face-to-face interactions it so desperately needs. You are just giving your pattern recognition machine the fuel it needs to finally learn the rules of the game. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Learning to Ride. I want to introduce a really powerful physical analogy from the source material that ties this entire explainer together beautifully. Consider the sharp contrast between theory and practice. Watching self-improvement content, even sitting here focused on this very explainer, is only the theory. It's exactly like watching a video on the mechanics of how a bicycle works. You can sit there and memorize how the gears shift and how the pedals turn the chain, but that knowledge is vastly different from the act of actually jumping on the seat and pedaling. Theory is safe, sure, but practice? Practice is where the skill is actually built.
And this brilliantly illustrates our ultimate takeaway. The fastest way to learn how to ride a bike is to just jump on and start pedaling. You just have to accept that you are going to fall over. You are absolutely guaranteed to have some awkward, clunky interactions when you start this challenge. But falling over is the required process. It's a feature of learning. It's not a bug. Fall down. Find balance. Speak with finesse. I really want to reassure you that by enduring that initial awkwardness and falling down a few times, your brain is eventually going to do exactly what it was built to do. It'll learn the patterns. It's going to figure out what's funny, what's appropriate, and how to instantly read body language. And that is exactly how you move from awkwardness to achieving true conversational balance and finesse. Which leaves us with this final, provocative question. Who are you going to talk to today? The theory is done, guys. You know how the bike works. Now it is time to pedal. I challenge you to put down the screen, step away from that magic little rectangle, and start your 100 Interaction Challenge right now. Go feed your brain the practice it deserves. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.